Everything out there is horseshit. Everything's garbage. Every place around the world's unsafe. Have your identity attached to this. Your identity has to be attached to this country, and this is who you are. These are the cultural norms that everybody lives by. You have to live by them. And the cultural norms were made by motherfuckers just like you that are probably dead. There's value and there's power in the group, but the group mind is not a rational mind. It's an emotional mind. Edward Bernays, and guess who his nephew is? The founder of Netflix. Surprise, surprise. Whoa, what the fuck? Oh, and a movie was released last year called White Noise, talking about a train derailing and blowing up in East Palestine. But propaganda. No, it's just a coincidence. No worries. We live in a matrix. Shit's a joke. They're following the other monkeys, right? Yeah. So the issue isn't so much so this idea of nature versus nurture, or people have a natural tendency towards kind of like a group mind or a hive mind. It's the fact that people have no self-identity because they don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. That they have to fit in somewhere because that fitting in tells them who they are. That's why you have left wing, right wing, political person A, political person B. Dude, when people come to me like, "What's your political affiliation?" I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, I've been voting Democrat or Republican my entire life. I'm like, the fuck you talking to me about, bro? Like, you don't even know who's this, who's that, what's happening in the world. You just found your identity in this thing that happens to have a few things in common with you, and they snatched you like that, right? So you're not an autonomous individual. You're just a cog in somebody else's plans, because somebody's running that shit. So you're either building and forging your own story in the present time, in your circumstances, or it'll be forged by another person. You'll either program yourself or somebody will program you.
I think that's one of the things I'm really grateful for that I didn't see. Like when I first moved to the US, maybe you can relate to this as well. I was, kind of upset. Obviously, I had my whole life like in Chile, and then I moved here and, it was all new. But I feel like that helped me just not have a sense of identity because I just went to a completely new place that is totally different. And I think it really helped my mind just open up and think a little bit bigger, get like a whole new perspective. Would you say that's how it happened with you, or when did you start sort of thinking for yourself?
So I've been to 50 countries, and when you travel, you acquire what I like to call data sets. So after being to 50 countries, almost every continent in the world, you begin to acquire data sets because you travel to different places on the map. You do different side quests, you meet different people, you talk to different NPCs, you get different pieces of information, right? And now you begin to build a different worldview based off of the new data sets. So what is the purpose of a country, right? A country wants to make sure that you adopt their worldview, their belief system, their ideology. Why? Because if you're a productive citizen or productive slave, they don't want you going to another slave farm or another slave plantation when you can produce here. So they have to tell you that everything out there is horseshit, everything's garbage, and every place around the world's unsafe. Have your identity attached to this, right? Your identity has to be attached to this country, and this is who you are. These are the cultural norms that everybody lives by. You have to live by them. And the cultural norms were made by motherfuckers just like you that are probably dead. Whether the cultural differences or mannerisms that you adopt are good or not, they build into your identity and into your worldview and into how you operate. And it's in this where people get super confused and it gets tricky, bro. So it's a tough one because there's value and there's power in the group, but the group mind is not a rational mind. It's an emotional mind. And the people that understand this, like Edward Bernays, who wrote the book Propaganda, who introduced fluoride in the water system, who introduced cigarettes to pregnant ladies, and who introduced breakfast, the scam of breakfast.
Damn, this guy sucks.
He understood Edward Bernays, and guess who his nephew is? The founder of Netflix. Surprise, surprise. Whoa, what the fuck? Oh, and a movie was released last year called White Noise, talking about a train derailing and blowing up in East Palestine. But propaganda. No, it's just a coincidence. No worries. We live in a matrix. Shit's a joke. But back to Edward Bernays. You have Edward Bernays who pushes breakfast, pushes fluoride, and pushes cigarettes. And what does he say? The hive mind is not a rational mind. It's a mind based on what? Emotion. And what are the two strongest emotions, my friend? They're both of the same spectrum. Fear and love, right? Or hate. You could call it hate and love. That is the most powerful vibrational frequency that we operate in, the vibrational frequency of love. And within that vibrational frequency, that's where people find, right, their ability to be molded or taken advantage of, right? So the jab rolls around, and what do they tell you? They don't tell you do it for yourself. They tell you what? Do it to protect everybody else, right? So they automatically put you into the hive. And there's this famous saying that says, that which is good for the hive is not good for the bee. So it's about taking that into perspective when you begin to adopt all these worldviews and perceptions, and understanding that there's people behind these things that control and curate the narrative. And their appeal isn't to your logic, it's to your emotion, because it's in your emotion where they can suck you in. And yeah, people need to be really extremely careful